Hey everybody, welcome to reInvent. Can you believe it's here? I can't. We've been looking forward to it for a long time. I'm excited to welcome my co-presenter, Rajiv Khanna, Chief Information Officer of Aon Corporation. I am Andrea Yeomans. I am an AI ML Product Marketing Manager at AWS. So today, we're going to be talking about how Aon gathered insights out of documents using AWS AI services. So let's kick it off with the agenda. So what's in it for you today? Today we're going to be talking about the challenges of document processing, kind of why it's difficult, why it's complex. We're going to talk a little bit about AWS AI services and how they can help you overcome document processing. Quickly going to touch some common use cases for IDP that we're seeing right now. And then the most interesting part and the best part is that Rajiv and I are going to have an awesome conversation about how Aon is processing documents using AWS AI. And then finally, at the end of our conversation, I will give you some resources so that you can go home or at home, you can learn more about this topic. So let's jump right in. Extracting data from documents, it's complex and it's really hard. And I think it's because there's the sheer amount of documents that are out there that companies are getting and receiving. And there's also their different layouts, different formats, different types. And so document processing is difficult. And how we think about it, intelligent document processing at AWS, is the extracting and understanding of information within documents. And so the first challenge that we see with a lot of our customers is that extracting is manual, it's time consuming, it's expensive, and it's error prone. And that's because you've got people manually taking information out of a document and putting it into another system. Second, the manual process doesn't scale easily. So let's say that we had something happen in the world that made more documents come in at a quicker pace. We're seeing the manual processes that people are using that doesn't scale when you get an influx of documents. Third, we are seeing a lot of organizations use traditional OCR, optical character recognition, or NLP technologies that are usually template-based or configurable. And so when you get a new document in, you're having to reconfigure that optical character recognition. And finally, onboarding new documents is very, very effort intensive, and it also causes delays to the end user. So a lot of companies, mortgage applications, when you're processing these types of things, you're taking that information out of those documents and you're using it to help your end users get a mortgage or finance a house. So a lot of organizations are finding that data just remains in their documents and it's unavailable to generate business insights down the line. So, our mission at AWS is to put machine learning in every developer's hand. And normally I would show you the AWS Stack slide, which has a lot of different services. But I thought, why not just show you the core services that we talk about when we talk about intelligent document processing? And that's Amazon Textract, Amazon Comprehend, and Amazon A2I, or Augmented AI. So we have other services that we do use when we do process documents. You can add in intelligent search with Amazon Kendra. You can do Amazon Rekognition with custom labels. But when we really think about the core of intelligent document processing, we think about these services. And I've laid it out here so that you can kind of understand how we think about it. On the left side, you can see there's all of the documents. And there's only 3 listed here, but there are thousands, millions. I mean, Rajiv is going to talk about all of the documents that they have in their company. There's a lot of documents. It could be a financial statement, a mortgage application, a legal document, anything you can think of, it can go on that left side, right? And those documents come in different formats, different files, types. And so we think about documents right there on the left. And the other thing we also think about and we also talk a lot about are those documents structured or unstructured. So I'll quickly go over structured documents. It's usually when you see a document that has a layout that's pretty consistent. You know where the information is and it's usually there all the time. When you think about unstructured documents, you think about legal contracts where there's just words on a page. And so when you move into that middle square, we offer 2 different services, Amazon Textract and Amazon Comprehend. And I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of these services, but in case you haven't, I'm just going to briefly go over, what they do. So Amazon Textract is a service that automatically extracts text and data from documents and goes beyond simple OCR. So we've talked about how limiting OCR is. Textract does much more than just templates and configuration. It actually can extract text from tables and forms. And we just recently launched a new API that can do invoices and receipts. So you have to think about it at a larger scale. It's like a souped up version of OCR. Amazon Comprehend is also another service that can extract text and data from unstructured or semi-structured documents. Again, think about those legal contracts that I talked about. And what Comprehend is, the natural language processing service that uncovers information and insights within your documents. It also can do PII redaction, classification, and the most thing that we've been seeing with Comprehend lately is custom entity extraction. So if we go back to the mortgage example, you have specific entities that you want out of those documents. Using Comprehend, you can train a model and pull out those entities so that you're getting the information that you need and using it in your downstream applications. You can also do document classification. So as you can see kind of in that third row, there's different things that you can do once the data has been extracted from documents. And then finally, the very, very other side is augmented AI, which is Amazon HI as we call it. We have a lot of names for it, and it's the human in the loop service. And I think when we think about how our customers are thinking about document processing, a lot of them are in highly regulated industries, and therefore they need a human in the loop. So they need a human reviewer. And there's two different options. You can send it to a human or you don't have to. So it's kind of a nice flexible option if you're looking for a human in the loop. All right. So finally, before I get into the good stuff, I just wanted to go over briefly some of the common IDP use cases that we're seeing. I've talked about mortgage applications. We're going to be talking about insurance forms. We've got SEC filings. There are a lot of industries that intelligent document processing can touch. These are just a few. So if your industry is not here, don't worry. As you know, there's a ton of paper in the world, and I think Gartner states that it grows by 25% each year. So as you can imagine, you have all these documents, you know that there's vital information because a lot of people use documents as a means of communication. And so through using AWS AI services, you can extract and understand the information within those documents from any industry, including kind of a horizontal use case, which is invoices and receipts, identity documents, and purchase orders. So with that, the exciting part begins. I'm really excited to have Rajiv Khanna, CIO of Aon Corporation, with me today. They have done an amazing job in their AI ML journey. And so before we get into the conversation, we're going to kick it off with a little intro video that Aon's put together to tell you a little bit about their journey.
Life moves forward to the beat of decisions. Big, small, good, bad, the everyday, the unexpected. Decisions affect the world, impact each other. Over time, they give rise to new questions, new challenges, new opportunities. At Aon, we see a world increasingly impacted by the decisions organizations make. We know businesses thrive and grow when their decisions enable people to flourish. So we help shape decisions that protect and enrich communities and avoid unwanted consequences. Put simply, we are in the business of better decisions. The experience and expertise of our people, their global understanding, and the advanced analytics at their disposal make our united team uniquely equipped to bring clarity and confidence to our clients' decision-making. Our job is to ensure every Aon client is better informed, better advised, and able to make better decisions for whatever the world needs next. Aon is in the business of better decisions.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the welcome, and looking forward to the discussion here, and appreciate the opportunity. Look, I mean, we've done a lot of stuff, and then you saw the video, and maybe we start with sort of my little quick background on myself. I've been with Aon for about 6 years. I'm the CIO with the firm. And part of my job really includes all things technology, but more importantly, how do we solve business challenges with technology, right? We are in a business that is prime for technology to disrupt, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we have the right solutions and the right technology that fit into it. So Andrea, looking forward to the conversation. So thanks for having me here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about it. I mean, once we've started working together, it's been an exciting journey. So I think to kick us off, maybe we can do a quick rundown or brief overview of your business model and the context of your environment and the scale of your operations.
Yeah, look, I mean, as the video showed, Aon is really in the business of helping our clients make better decisions. But just to give you some context as to what we are talking about here. We are a professional services organization that really predominantly focuses on risk, retirement, and health. We have 50,000 colleagues across over 120 countries. And these colleagues have expertise in every market segment, in every industry segment that you can think of. And what we try to do is to combine these expertise with data and analytics. And then we'll talk about as the amount of data and the things that we are talking about. And as you can imagine, through these numbers, and some of these numbers on the screen are significantly large. Over $3 trillion worth of retirement assets that we advise on. Over $109 billion worth of premium placement on an annual basis. And as you can imagine, these large transactions and these large numbers generate a lot of data. And the key really is, what do we do with this data and how do we leverage that to help our colleagues, as well, more importantly, how we help our clients to make better decisions.
Yeah, these numbers are giant. We've been looking at them it's unbelievable. The number of colleagues you have around the world, as well as the numbers that's on the slide. And I think, as we talk about document processing, we know that there's an enormous amount of information stuck in documents. So I think the next question I have is, what's your digital transformation journey and what were your organizational objectives? Because clearly you've got a lot of paper and you've got a lot of information stored there, and you want to be able to serve your customers or your clients better. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, I mean, our journey on the digital transformation really started a number of years ago. And really, as I said before, we want to help our clients make better decisions. And in order for us to help our clients make better decisions, we need to have right type of data, right information that's available easily. Just to give a little bit more context around our size and scale, right? 144,000 different clients across the globe in 120 plus countries. We interact with about 1,800 insurers globally, and over $75 billion worth of premium bounded every year. And each one of these transactions, each one of these discussions generates more data. And we've tried to do this in a variety of different ways, manually. And sort of partner with some of our insurer tech firms that are working in this space. The capabilities that exist today in terms of AI and ML really allow us to do and analyze this data at scale. And this data comes in all the different formats. I'll talk a bit more about this. And some of the imperatives for this transformation, for our digital transformation, are really the 4 key factors that play into it. It's really the market dynamic. Things are changing so fast in the marketplace. It's the climate. It's the intellectual property risk. It's pandemic. It's all of these different new things that are coming up that perhaps weren't top of mind for our clients 3, 5, 10 years ago. As a result of all of these market dynamic changes, client needs are changing. So we have to be able to react and actually address the client needs as we are moving forward. The business models are changing. If you really think about all the insurer techs and all the startups that are coming along and they are innovating in this space. And it's also our traditional competitors that are innovating. They're not sitting back and just waiting for things to happen. So we have to keep up with what with all of these dynamic changes. And lastly, but equally important, is the demand coming from our colleagues. our colleagues want to interact with the firm in a different way. They need different tools that they're demanding a different way of working. And when we think about our digital transformation, there are sort of four key buckets that we broke this up into. It really started with a core foundational capabilities. When we think about our adoption of cloud, adoption of our PaaS services in the cloud, our data center strategy, it sounds pretty simple, but it's not an easy thing to do for a large organization. Second component of that really is our application and business platforms. How do we deliver solution line specific capabilities within each one of these areas? Third one really is around data. Our investment in our data analytics platform, and we'll talk a bit more about that as well. It has been a critical investment over years. And the last one, and an important one, is security. All of what we do has to be done in a secure fashion. It has to be managed from a regulatory point of view, privacy controls, compliance controls, data residency. All of those things have to be part of that consideration. And just maybe two examples of how things have played out. In the pandemic 18, 20 months ago, we went from having about 5,000, 6,000 people working from home to having the entire 50,000 people working from home almost over the weekend. And similarly, our data analytics platform, we have over 80 projects that are active. We've launched 40 net new products in production on that platform. And 3 years ago, this platform didn't exist in our environment. And the ability to sort of combine the cloud capabilities along with the PaaS services and has enabled us to move at a faster pace and being able to stay ahead of the market demand, or at least keep up with the market demand in a lot of cases.
And so when you built your platform and as you've gone through the kind of digital transformation, you found that there's a need to put more energy into this. And then we went into the pandemic and now we're all working remote. And so it kind of made it a little bit more hyper aware. So now you have this document analytics solution, right? That's what you've been building up to. So maybe we can, I know you have that available. So maybe just tell me a little bit more about that, how you guys got from where you started with your innovation, like when you kicked that off, and how you got to the document analytics solution.
Yeah, look, I mean, given our Aon's presence in all of the significant markets of our choice, we interact with a lot of different firms, different business entities, as well as governmental entities. And as a result of that, we end up needing to exchange a lot of data. We end up having to transact. That generates a lot of documents. And unfortunately, or the reality is, a lot of that happens still in a sort of more traditional forms, and they're not all done in a digital fashion. So it's a PDF, it's an email, frankly, it could be a paper document that we have to bring along. And as you can imagine, that results in, that sort of shows our solution lines are really underpinned by some traditional business models. And we want to be able to, we have to digitize what we do. But in order for us to sort of onboard these processes, we needed to create an on-ramp to that digital journey in order for us to manage these documents, so they end up in a more of an integrated systems rather than these one-off type solutions, or in all these different silos and distributed across many different formats and different locations. The good thing is we invested in our data analytics platform almost 4 years ago, which is running 100% on AWS. We use a lot of native services within that environment, and we were able to stand up new capabilities, and we continue to stand up new capabilities within that platform. A few years ago, we actually we have and continue to partner with some of the insurtech firms that specialize to extract data from certain specific types of documents. But when we really look at the size and the scale of the situation and the different need of formatting and different types of data that we want to extract from these documents, we really need to sort of think about how do we do this economically, and how we do this in a more flexible architecture that allow us to be able to onboard new types of documents, onboard different types of data extraction, and we want to do this in a natively within the cloud. And we also looked across sort of the third-party commercial solutions. And as we sort of compared the more of the insurtech specialized cases along with the commercial solution, and also look at the native cloud capabilities that are coming along, we felt that the native cloud PaaS services will frankly outpace the innovation in that space than any particular specialty firm would be able to do. So as a result, we ended up actually partnering with AWS Professional Services to develop a shared capability within our environment on top of our data analytics services platform, and we simply just called it Document Analytics, and we are leveraging, as I mentioned, a lot of the sort of the local native AWS PaaS services as part of that solution.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the important piece there, I mean, there's so many good chunks of information there. Like, I think when we talk about document processing, we talk to lots of customers and people who are struggling in this. You talk about when you get a new document in, when you use traditional OCR, when you're using like legacy systems, when you get a new document type, like it kind of messes with the pipeline, right? So you said that you continue to onboard new documents. How does that work with your system? How are you able, let's just say you're processing insurance claims and then you get invoices from a different client. How are you able to adjust your document pipeline to, process the thousands or hundreds, however many you have, of those different types of documents? Because I think a lot of people that I talk to, they struggle with that. They're like, well, I can process these 5 documents. I want to process more. How are you able to do that with what you have set up?
Yeah, I mean, given the flexibility of the framework, and the key thing here really is having the document types. Look, I mean, there are certain standard documents that we process, and then there are non-standard documents. We can manage both of those through the system in terms of bringing it on in the early days. We obviously evaluate the business case. We look for the opportunity as to what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. We'll do a quick sort of proof of value type assessment to identify if that document type is the right type of document that should go through the process, in terms of can we extract the right type of data? Can we match it to the appropriate reference data? How much effort does it take from a validation perspective? You mentioned human in the middle. How much effort is it required? And then we build a business case around creating more of that, assuming it all pans out. And it's really sort of leveraging the native services like text extract, like comprehend, and to be able to do the matching. And we also have lots of reference data that we want to match it against. And the quality of that reference data and the early proof of value aspect is where it really pans out before we decide we're going to go down a particular path.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people face that challenge in document processing. So, how do you prioritize kind of the scenario? So you've got different scenarios for different documents. How do you prioritize that in your funnel? Like, how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, look, I mean, so we have, like most organizations, we have lots and lots of stuff. We are a large organization. We are complex. We have governance models and our return on investment processes that we go through. We have to assess and work with our solution lines and geographies to be able to determine what makes sense and if there's a return on that investment. Thankfully, we have a central business-facing team, or what we call Aon Business Services, that actually has visibility into a lot of those processes. We start with the process, we look at the process, we look at the document type. We work with the subject matter experts from a process point of view, as well as the document owners and document managers, as well as the operations folks to determine if it makes sense, right? And really sort of focusing on reducing errors and omissions, focusing on how do we become a more of a lean enterprise by to determine if that use case puts us in that direction and it helps us with the digital journey, but also help us move faster. And as I mentioned, we will test that hypothesis with the new set of documents to ensure that what we are going after actually makes sense, right? We'll do that with a small set of data, but what that hypothesis effort also does for us is actually help determine the level of effort. It helps determine the required investment, how much human in the loop type exercise do we need from an investment perspective, and then also determine how do we match these things up, and what's the quality of the reference data to be able to match these things up and being able to get a higher quality result and being able to extract the data sets that we need. And then based on that, we will set a set of KPIs from an end-to-end value chain delivery and the quality of that we anticipate, as well as the reduction in effort that we are looking to drive from, and then we measure that to ensure that it's the highest level of value is what we are going after, and that's how we do the prioritization, because there's lots and lots of things that we could be doing, but there's only so much time and money and effort that we can put against all of these things. But obviously we want to speed these things up, and we want to be able to put more and more through the process so that we are not limiting ourselves as to what we go after. But at the moment, we would do this based on our governance frameworks, return on investment, as well as the level of effort and that's required for us to implement.
Yeah. No, I mean, of course you want to do more, right? Everybody wants to be, the best and continue to grow and innovate, but I think it's important to get it right. And it sounds like you have a good mechanism in place to kind of make sure that you're testing and then you're seeing it through and then measuring that on the other end. So, I mean, I think it's awesome how you guys have set this up. I think the next question, and probably what a lot of people are wondering, is how you do it. And I know, I believe we have a slide on your little bit of how you've set up your architecture. So maybe you can touch a little bit on how you're able to do this.
Yeah, look, so let me start with the core foundation of this is our data analytics services platform. We've actually embedded this service, document analytics, as part of that platform. So every tenant that's currently consuming, I mentioned 80 plus projects at any given point in time, every tenant on the data analytics services platform now has access to document analytics. We have tools to help ingest data, right? So tools like StreamSets, or we have APIs or SFTP Dropboxes and gateways that exist, or the file upload through UI. All of that exists within the platform. And then we can also set up the ability to sort of model this data within the platform. So we have all of this data is stored in AWS S3. It's accessible by our modelers. They can train the models, they can test the model, they can promote the new model and sort of test the version A versus version B. And all of that is being done with AWS SageMaker. And then we also have configured flows using Lambda step functions and DynamoDB that handle and help orchestrate the process from initial OCR type thing, extraction of text, using the AWS text extract through the entity extraction model, and identify the data that's useful to Aon. And then we use either the AWS Comprehend service or our custom code that does entity recognition within that environment, and we deploy all of that custom code on top of Amazon Amazon ECS service, and as a result of that, we we also have, as I mentioned, we have partnership with the insurer tech firms, and they also produce some of this data, and they are doing some of the matching activities for certain document types. So we either redirect this data back into that flow, or we redirect the output back into our transactional systems. And one of the key things really is that this all gets stored and flows back into our data lake for other applications to be able to make the calls and to be able to do either operational analytics or transactional analytics and just analytics to help drive monetization opportunities. And some of the examples would be our broker applications using APIs to make the calls into this data and trying to extract the data. Individual analytics solutions on their standalone cases, they look at this data as well as the client files and the pre-processing steps as part of their pre-processing step to be able to deliver a web-based solution.
That was going to be my next question, is like, so now that you've set this up, like, how do you use the end users using this data? How are they using that? And because this is complex, right? And this reference architecture is beautiful. And so like at the end of the day, like you've implemented a lot of AWS services, you're on the cloud, you're in S3, you've got Amazon Textract, Amazon Comprehend for machine learning, you've got data analytics, all the stuff that you need in here, which is very robust, right? And you've worked hard to get here. Like, how does that help your clients in the end? Like, how are they using that data?
Yeah, I'll give you one example that's been live for about a few weeks now, and we are processing about 400 documents per day, and the process is really there to issue certificates of insurance on behalf of our clients. So we get all these requests on a regular basis for whatever reason our client needs a certificate of insurance. In that example, we historically would get data through emails and other documents. We have to be able to extract the relevant data to be able to issue that certificate and create that certificate for the client. Now we're using this service to be able to extract the appropriate data. We are using that data to create the appropriate document that the client is requesting. And as a result of that, we are actually seeing about a 40% improvement in processing time and the level of effort required. And our objective really from this whole program is really around trying to frankly create about 5% of our total capacity as a result of this effort. And that 5% across 50,000 people is a lot. And that doesn't mean that everything is going to be put through this process and then we can automate everything, etc. But the key is some of these core processes can deliver 30, 40, 50, maybe perhaps up to 70% efficiency in certain areas. That creates this capacity that frees up our colleagues to be able to focus on other client needs and being able to support our clients in a different way. And we fundamentally believe that that's the right answer for us to be able to sort of scale this out. And one of the things as a set of next steps is really to scale these solutions to a much larger set of implementation, more effective use cases, as well as really coming down to driving that reusability within our ecosystem for the assets that we are creating in terms of capabilities. And we actually have several different pipelines that are already in play, the projects that are in play through this process. For example, identifying thousands of new prospects for our sales and marketing teams. Additionally, we are extracting data from our SEC documents and Twitter feeds on behalf of our clients that identify some of the areas where they may be exposed, and that gives that where Aon can come in and help them. And it's an unmet need that we can proactively identify based on the documentation and the content that's already available in open environment. So that's how we see business getting excited about this and the value that they're getting, they're starting to see I would say we're still in the early days, but we have a pretty rich pipeline of ideas and projects that we expect to launch on top of these capabilities.
Yeah, and I just, it's super exciting. I know people think I'm a little bit of a geek because I love talking about documents, but I just think it's a vital piece of business, right? Like that's how we do a lot of our communications. All of that information is in there. It's amazing to hear how you can take the information that you have within certain documents and take that, pull out the insights that you need, and then use it. People can use it, and you're like providing that value to your clients and to your users. And I think it's, while it does seem a little dry, like it's really valuable information that you need in order to move your business forward, right? And to transform your business. So, and I know you talked a little bit about your roadmap. You know, what is next for you guys? I have a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap this up. But I think one of them is, what are the next steps for you? You've come a long way. You're still kind of, you said you're still kind of in the early stages. You know, what is the next 6, 9, 2 years look like for you guys?
Yeah, look, I mean, you're not alone when you get excited about documents, right? There's lots of folks within our organization that get excited because, look, the documents are how we get data. This is what gives us a lot of insights. These, as a professional services organization, what differentiates us in the marketplace is the insights that we can bring to our clients. And so, yeah, it's me as a technologist, I get excited about the capabilities that we are creating for the firm. Our business partners get excited because they're getting higher level of value out of what we are producing, and frankly, they are going out and actually trying to find other use cases and scenarios where they think these capabilities can be consumed and would add value to their offering for our clients. To go back to your question in terms of what's next, look, I mean, we don't have an exact end game to this. We are in a continuous improvement type mindset. We believe that the technology is evolving at a rapid pace. So are the client's needs. So we want to maintain a flexible architecture and flexible mindset as to how we move these things forward. I mentioned automated data entry and as one example of what we are going forward with in terms of, hey, how do we avoid rekeying? One of the challenges that we have in the organization, given the different systems and different needs for the same data, we end up having our client-facing colleagues have to re-enter. Can we eliminate some of that and give them the time back that they should have, focusing on the client and working and interacting with the client? The data harvesting is I think a challenge that most organizations have. How do we sort of bring the data back into our broking process in terms of our pricing process? How we think about our market codes that come back to us in terms of, hey, look, at any given point in time, when a client has a very complex need, we work with multiple insurers. We get a lot of quotes coming back. We have to be able to synthesize those data points in an appropriate way so we can present them back to the client so they can have an appropriate cover. So there's lots and lots of different use cases that we are thinking about. And as you can see, I get excited about it when I talk about all of the possibilities that are ahead of us. So I would say that our goal really over the next 6, 9, 12 months is to implement these use cases into production, scale out our environment, and do this in a way that is secure and compliant, because we are in a very regulatory environment, heavily regulated environment, where we need to make sure that it's done in an appropriate way. The data residency and where the data resides is an important factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk a lot about that with compliance and things like that with the various services, and it's because there are banking, insurance, healthcare, like there's a lot of industries that are highly regulated, and you want to make sure you've got that that down. So that makes total sense. And I'm glad that somebody else enjoys talking about documents as much as I do, because I talk about it every day. I'm sure you do too. So I think as we wrap up here, as I stated when I did my section of the talk, it's a complex problem. Obviously, you can see some of these slides, this part of this conversation, it's very complex. And I think there's probably people here who want to know how, what advice would you give them when they're starting their journey? Because I've seen a couple of customers, they're just getting on the cloud, they're just using S3 or storage, and they're starting to build that infrastructure. So I know that's important, and I've spent a lot of time talking about that too. But like, what would your advice be for somebody who's kind of just starting out in their journey, especially when it comes to documents, but even in a digital transformation journey? Like, what would your best advice be?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'll break this down into a few little categories, right? And I'll maybe start with one of the obvious one, but it's a good reminder. It's important not to chase after the every new shiny thing, right? As a technologist, I get excited about technology. I get excited about new capabilities in the marketplace, and we have a bit of a tendency to go try something new because it's exciting, it's new, and the reality is that's not really necessarily the right way to do this. And you need to make sure that the business model and the business problem that you're trying to solve and the technology that you're trying to deploy, they are complementary, and the technology is going to actually address the business needs that are there rather than chasing the latest and greatest things that's available. So the second one would be AI and ML based solutions need a sustainable investment. This is not a one-time thing. You need sponsorship, you need commitment from your stakeholders, your business partners, from the end users, because you want them to be part of the process. They need to be part of the process to sort of validate the data that's being extracted, the quality of the data, quality of the models that we're implementing. And when we change the model and have a different model, they need to be there with us to be able to test and make sure that we are doing the right things. You have to be able to trust the data, right? I mean, so you need to have sources of data that are trusted. So that means that we as an organization, we need to have a good data management and data cataloging capabilities that exist. And starting without that could lead us in a path that doesn't deliver the right outcomes for the business. And it's important that we actually don't lose sight of the management and the cataloging that's required. And then I mentioned business multiple times. We have to understand, why are we doing this? What are the business drivers that are leading to the whatever is it either it's a digital solution or a document management solution? What are the business drivers? What is the technology helping enable in terms of delivery? Do we want to buy or do we want to build? And that's most organizations ask that question, and you have to be very honest with yourself as to, hey, maybe it's better to buy rather than trying to go build something from scratch. And then the key thing is, what are you trying to build for? How big does it need to get? How much scaling up do you have to do? Do you have the appropriate distribution requirements that you're building to? So trying to understand all of that is a key component. And perhaps the last one I would say is, this isn't an all technical or a technology challenge. It's really your typical thing that you hear all the time. It's people, process, and technology. Everything has to work in sync. Everybody has to come together. You start with the process. You make sure that the process is right. You understand the process. The people have to be committed to doing what we're trying to do, and then applying the right technical solution to be able to deliver the right business outcome, or enabling a new capability in the organization, and really sort of focusing on the business value chain. And if these three things are not in sync, we clearly don't get the right outcome.
Yeah, I like that. Process, people, and technology. I think that's a really great way to think about it, and how you line those things up and how you match to make sure that those are all in alignment. It's kind of like the three-legged stool, right? You want to make sure you have all three so that it stands. And I think that's a really great way to frame it. So, we're kind of near the end of our questions. I hope I didn't miss any for us. Is there any closing remarks that you want to say before we close it out and we give everybody the resources?
No, I thank you for the conversation. Really enjoyed it. I hope it's been useful to everybody here, and appreciate the partnership with AWS and Amazon, and we continue to look forward to more use cases to come along, and I'm glad to be able to have a conversation about documents.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad somebody else shares my love of documents. And, I work with the AIML team a lot, and we have similar conversations about building and buying, and how do we match the technologies, and how do we enable our customers to, put their best foot forward when it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I am so thankful that you're here. I really appreciate you presenting with us and telling us your story. It's awesome. I just think it's a true inspiration for other people to understand that it is a complex problem, but it can be solved as long as you and how you explain it, if you just take it in phases and you kind of test and see the results, and then kind of maybe you have to go back to the drawing board sometimes. Maybe sometimes it's great and you move forward. So I think having, the story that you're telling with Aon is a really important one for our customers. And so I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation that we had. I want to thank Rajiv. Thank you so much for partnering with me and with AWS for this session. I hope everybody at reInvent enjoys it. And so before we close out, I'll just go over some quick resources. If you're excited to get started after our conversation, we have a couple different options for you. You can go to our Intelligent Document Processing website, which is at that URL, go.aws/IDP. There you can find different use cases like banking or insurance or healthcare. So you can go and search and discover on that. If you're anxious to run a POC, we have a few options. I'm going to go over one in particular. We've built what's called a document understanding solution, and that uses Textract and Comprehend, along with Kendra and a few other services like Comprehend Medical if you're in the medical field. This link here you can click, and it's a one-click implementation, so you can kind of get your feet wet with how we think about document processing and run a quick POC. So that's an option there. Rajiv mentioned he went through Amazon Professional Services. They're a great option for if you're looking for help in getting a pipeline set up and going, but we also have a huge amount of AWS partners that can help you do that as well. So it kind of depends on the journey that you want to take, but our AWS partners are on our partner website, and you can search those by either Intelligent Document Processing, or you can look for the individual services like Textract or Comprehend. And then finally, a lot of you probably already have account managers. If you don't, you can contact sales and they'll hook you up with somebody who can help you in the next steps. For the things that are not on here, you can always go to aws.amazon.com and look at any of the number of blogs that we have there. I publish blogs all the time. I have a bunch of colleagues and SAs that do it as well. And really, those are there for you. They model some of our customers' experiences. We've got ways on how to get started with new features similar to invoices and receipts. And our newest one, Analyze ID. So, you can go on the site and find a plethora of resources. If not, you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer questions about documents, as you can tell. A little bit of a nerd. So again, thank you, Rajiv, for joining me. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you.